Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, near or far, high or low. Welcome back to the Coach D podcast, where we dive deep into the mind of hoopers, trainers, and basketball pros to bring you what you can't get anywhere else. Today, listeners, I'm extremely excited, privileged to be joined by a special guest, Stephen Brown, a dynamic point guard currently playing for Nürnberg in the Basketball Champions League. Originally from the US, Stephen's journey from college ball to carving out a successful pro career is nothing short of inspiring. We're going to talk about his early days on the court, the adjustment to international basketball, and how he sharpens his skills in season, but also what it takes for athletes to thrive and become a pro, especially a point guard in today's game. So, listeners, please give a warm welcome to Stephen Brown. Appreciate you, man.
Oh man, appreciate you having me. That's a great intro. I ain't never had one like that before. So I appreciate you having me on the show.
No, man, the feelings are mutual, man. And just before we even just speak about just the introduction with how you got into basketball and just kind of your background, how was your physical and how was your mental?
I mean, right now, it's a little bit challenging. As you coming down to that last part of the season, playoffs. So now just, your body's just, dealing with the aches and pains, but you're just trying to push it through to the final stretch. So I mean, physically it's okay. Mentally, luckily it's not my first time being in this position, so I'm kind of mentally prepared to finish it off towards the end. So just trying to stay sharp and stay around the sun. That usually helps me to stay mentally
Yeah,
into it during this time.
nice, nice. And just starting with kind of an introduction and kind of getting your background, because I mean, I was watching. I mean, to be honest, I mean, the listeners know this. I watch NBA, WNBA, 3x3, EuroLeague, FIBA Euro Cup, Basketball Champions League. As long as it's basketball and it's competitive, I'm zoomed in. So kind of just when I was doing my research on you, I mean, I've been watching Basketball Champions League for a while, anyways, but really just honing into your style of play. But before we even speak about that, kind of take us back, Stephen, like just to some of your earlier days and how did your basketball journey begin growing up in the US?
For me, my basketball journey probably started when I was about 4 or 5 years old. My dad, got me early. Yeah, he got me early starting, just the basic rec league. Um, I just took a liking to the game. I mean, I was always fast, had good, coordination. So, I just found the game fun playing growing up. And as I started to progress, I got introduced to, AAU at a young age, probably between the ages of 8 and 9. And what always helped me was I was always playing up with, whether that's if I'm 9 years old playing with 11U. Um, I did that for 2 years, and then before going into high school, I kind of took a break to just, really focus on my skills. Instead of just playing a lot of different games, just trying to build the type of player that I want to be. I mean, especially playing, guys that were older than me or stronger, faster, just wanted to, get better during that summer. And, I think that time definitely prepared me going into high school for a high school season. I came from a small private school, not really known
Okay.
in the area at the time, but as things started to progress, we started playing teams in our area that were known and, kind of got some momentum, got our name out there in the school. Um, I think before my freshman year, well, starting eighth grade is when I started playing varsity. So the school's so small, you can start
Mhm.
playing varsity in the eighth grade. So my ninth grade year, was the first time the school was made or able to go to, state tournament. Um, so I mean, it was a lot of firsts being a part of that school, and the area that I'm from, it was a lot of basketball. High schools or stuff that you can kind of transfer to better position yourself going into college. But I took the
Right.
risk of just staying, because, I didn't just wanna be known for just a basketball player. I'm also a believer in Christ. My faith was important to me, is important
Love
to
that.
me.
Love
Um,
that.
I was able to grow in that, grow in my academics, and, basketball was just, the part that helped me get to that next level. So, I mean, and AAU, of course, I got back into AAU between the ages of 14 and 15 and, got some, D2, D3, and then Division 1 looks. Um, and that, propelled me to get an offer to go to college at Bucknell University. Um,
Right.
from there, I was there for all 4 years. Um,
Mhm.
like another small, private institution, but Division 1. So that's what kind of drew me in was, small, but you also got, good academics similar to high school. The team, the coaching staff was very, professional, great group of guys. And to be honest, my freshman year, I really struggled, like any other
Okay.
freshman would.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't come in, right away, and I had some other freshman teammates, came in and, made impact right away. But, I saw some games during the preseason games, and then it was a stretch for about the first 13, 14 regular season games where I didn't see the floor. It wasn't until about halfway through that season. Yeah, it wasn't until about halfway through the season that the starting point guard had like a stomach issue or something like that, and the other point guard wasn't, playing as well or something like that. So then out of nowhere, the coach comes and says, "Hey, you're starting, the next game." And then from that moment on, I started all 4 years. So I mean, that's just it would just goes into, just being persistent and just
For sure.
waiting for your opportunity, just being ready. That's a whole another thing in itself.
Talk about it.
But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so I mean, you don't really see that as much often nowadays. Like I said, that's a whole other thing in itself. But from there, sophomore year, we won the league, but didn't, get a chance to make it to, March Madness. And then my junior and senior year, that's when I was able to, make the March Madness tournament, 2 years, won our league. Um, Grateful and blessed to have those experiences. You know, After that, I didn't really know, I heard about overseas. I didn't really know if that would even be an option, but I was like, I'm not gonna, cut that off.
Pause on that real quick, Steve, because just to because
Yeah.
like you just mentioned quite a few stuff there, like because we're definitely gonna just speak about that transition from college to pro, and even we're just gonna break down your playing style and just the day-to-day routine of what your training style looks like during the season. But like this is something that I never knew because I mean, obviously for me, growing up in London, UK, I would just assume anywhere in the US, as soon as you pick up a ball, there's a solid infrastructure or powerhouse team in that area. But kind of just even how you was breaking it down, would you say that's not always the case? Like, yes, basketball is huge in the US, but it's still down to geographics in the way.
Yeah, I would say in a sense it still is. Depending on where you are in the
Okay.
States, you might be, within that circle of where it is a powerhouse school or a powerhouse AAU team,
Okay.
or you might be, in this city, that's a part of a, very powerhouse situations. So I mean, like you see kids nowadays are traveling or, will move to this school to be a part of this, program to help them grow. So I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of different pockets that you can find. But luckily
Right.
the infrastructure is, grown and stable enough where if a team at this level likes you, then you can move out there. They provide housing and all the different things. So I mean, I've seen it from
Wow.
not just at a high school level, but they even have it as a middle school level now. So it's But I
Okay.
mean, the thing that helped me the most was that was my biggest thing growing up, and one of my AU coaches once told me, it was like, "If you're good enough, the right coach and program will find you." So I just always stood with that, especially going into my sophomore, junior year of, high school. And I just trusted that, if
Right.
I just continue to work and, perform and do what I'm supposed to do, the right program, whether it was Division 1 or Division 2, the right program will come, and luckily it did.
Right. And talk about like when was the moment for you, Stephen? I feel like there's that light bulb moment where the game just starts to slow down. They see that double team coming, so they already know to split it, or they beat their first defender. The game is slowing down where they're already seeing the help come, so they already know where to kick the ball out to. Like, when was that moment for you, Stephen, where you realized that you was nice at basketball?
In high school or college?
Ooh, which came first? Was it the high school moment that led to the college moment, or
I would say in high school at high school, it was just different because I was always faster than everybody, so I didn't really have to rely on anything else, so I had that advantage.
right?
I would probably say for college, that moment didn't really hit me until maybe, surprisingly, my senior year because, I had a really good coach who, he's the head coach of, my college now. He was the assistant at the time, and he introduced me how to watch film. So once I was able to see film and see like breakdown of defenses and options that I could have, it opened up, my vision of the game, not just to be, come down the floor and try to blow past somebody. It's just like, okay, you come off of this screen, these are your options. And that expanded, my game tremendously. And also
Right.
my knowledge of how to watch film, what type of players to watch that, are similar to my game. So that's what I would probably say. It wasn't until actually my senior year where I felt that like I'm pretty good and can play at, a pretty high level.
How does one? Because it's funny. I was listening to a podcast and I think there was a guy saying like it was the No Chill Gill actually, and he was saying like you got these guys who watch film, but they don't know how exactly to watch film or what things are you looking for. Don't just look for, oh, that person made a backdoor cut. What plays or triggers happen before that in order for the result to be a backdoor cut? So you kind of just said there like that was quite an important defining moment for you that kind of made you realize that you were nice at basketball, was where your coach was kind of highlighting it's important to watch film. Like, what was your coach telling you, or what were some of the things that you was, I guess, naturally or over time picking up when it comes to studying film? Like, how did you approach that?
If we were preparing for another team or, they had a specific player on their team or somebody that I was guarding,
Yeah.
I started to realize that with basketball players, everyone has a pattern or a certain tendency that they like to do.
Wait,
At high school level, okay,
so true.
at a high school level, most people can't use the ball on their offhand. They might take two dribbles and they're going right back to their strong hand. Obviously, at a college level, it's a little bit more, better players, but most of the time, most players have a tendency of doing 2 to 3 things that they like to do, a favorite move that they like to do. So I would always try to find, okay, if I'm guarding this player, what is their tendency and what is something that I can do to maybe throw them off? Maybe they don't like, being physical. Maybe they don't like going all the way to the basket with their left, so I can pressure up more on their left. So just kind of finding tendencies within a certain player, and that's something that I still use now as a pro player, but just finding certain tendencies when it comes to individual players that I may be guarding, and then as a team concept, it's just, okay, well, how are they scoring? Are they scoring from getting in the paint to driving kicks? Do they like to, feed out of the post? Or do they use a lot of pick and roll? What is the point guard looking for when they come out of pick and roll? Most point guards and most teams, they focus on finding the big or the skip pass. So it's just trying to find what is that team's offensive go to, especially later down in the game. Those when you trying to focus on those plays of like, okay, this is their go-tos. So if you can get to their go-tos and take that out the way, then you most likely have an advantage on that end. So that's kind of how that coach was able to help me break down film from a individual level and then to a team concept level.
That's big time, man. Shout out to that coach, man, because that's just putting you up on game, especially to acquire that at such a young age in your playing career. I mean, I can just tell me even just how you play, it does wonders, and I'm super curious, like Stephen, because obviously, again, growing up in the UK, or I think just growing up in Europe, yes, we idolize and look at, the NBA being like the highest level, the highest caliber, but we also grew up in Europe, so we watch, basketball from different parts of Europe. There's different leagues, so we're quite familiar with the different professional leagues outside of the US. So for yourself, Stephen, like growing up in the States, how aware were you of the international basketball opportunities like a basketball Champions League?
To be honest, when I was growing up, there was no explanation or, the competitive side of European basketball at all. I think it's a little bit better now, but in terms of international play or like the level of leagues, there was no discussion or anything about it. Um,
Right.
Most of the time, guys coming out of college, it's like, okay, obviously, if you're in the US, every kid's dream is to make to the NBA or try to get a G League deal or
Right.
something like that. So that was everybody's focus. Like I said before, that coach, he played overseas, so he knew about the Euro League, knew about Champions League, Euro Cup. So he was telling me, he was like, I remember him telling me, when you go overseas, your goal should be, you want to get on one of those Champions League teams or one of those teams that play international. To me, I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. It wasn't probably until about
Oh,
my yeah, it wasn't probably until about my second year overseas where I really understood the different international competitions that were offered overseas.
okay. Okay. And even just like making that transition of you joining of your journey, sorry, overseas and your basketball Champions League experience, like what was the transition like moving from the US system to playing in Europe and then eventually joining Nürnberg?
Wow, so this is my 7th year, so it didn't, just happen overnight. It was
Right.
it's been a journey. I just started making a whole series about it on TikTok, just sharing my experience. But my first year out of college going overseas, my first stop was in second division of Turkey. And I was there for no longer than 3 months and still trying to use that team aspect that I was similar to in college because I played with other guys that had bigger roles. And then going into a situation like Turkey, for the position that they were looking for, a point guard, I think it was something that I needed more experience, especially being a veteran guard, because a lot of the guys that were in that league or foreigners were veterans. So for me, after our third game, we lost three in a row. I ended up getting cut from the team. So that was my first experience
Wow.
overseas was
Wow.
getting
Okay.
cut from a team. So
Right.
I'm sitting there in, Turkey, my apartment, just contemplating, is this going to be, the end of my, pro career? Will there be another opportunity? Um, just a lot of different things that are just kind of going through my mind. It was the first time where it was like nobody can really help you. Um, and it's like a test. And I remember praying to God, and I just remember hearing, like, if you really want this, then this is what you're gonna have to go through. But luckily after that, about a month later, I ended up going to a team in Estonia. Didn't really know anything about the team. I just wanted to be back in Europe. So I went to Estonia, and then that time that I was in Estonia, after learning what happened, I just, focused on the business side. It's like, okay, they don't care how nice you are. They don't care, how good of a person you may actually be. If the results don't show, then, you're not gonna be able to make it in this business. So, I mean, I did well there, and then luckily I got bought out by a Russian team, um, that, still second division Russian team, but they were a playoff team and, they were paying less, and so I ended up going there. So, I mean, that was just all in my first year of playing overseas. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's context in your
So
yeah, damn, okay. Wow,
yeah, 3
wow.
teams, 3 different countries, all in, my first year overseas. But I knew after that, I was like, if I got through that, I know that when the right situation comes, like, it will be, I'll be prepared for it.
Yeah,
Uh, my second season, I went to Germany, so that was my introduction to, you know, the German league, EuroLeague teams. Like I said, that's when I understood, like, oh, there's EuroLeague teams. Oh, there's Champions League teams that play international Euro Cup, because those teams were in that league. So that's where I got to have, that experience
right.
or what those teams were like. Um, Still great experience. Uh, that was when I first got introduced to, how overseas organizations should be, how to take care of players. But unfortunately, that was the year that COVID happened. So that season got cut short. Yeah, but it was still a fun season. I had fun. I enjoyed it. Got to have a full season somewhere. And then the third year was, where I actually ended up in London with the London Lions. I was at home. It was probably about late September, and I remember that they, needed another guard. One of the guards got hurt during, preseason, so they needed another guard to come fill in
Yeah,
for the London Lions for preparing for the Champions League. So now that I had an understanding of Champions League, I was like, okay, cool. It's London, great country that I had never been to. Everybody speaks
right.
English, and ambitious team that wants to
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
part of the Champions League. So even though it was only 1 month, deal or a replacement, I was hoping, if things work out, maybe could stay there for the long term. However, being there in London was probably the most, like, shout out to, like, Justin Robinson, uh, the legends that were on there, that whole
Yeah,
team that were made up. Um, that OG, that guy there, I mean, he had I didn't know it at the time, but, a lot of those dudes that were on the team were just guys that were, like, legends in the UK basketball or played
yeah,
in America and then came back to their country and then really, like, yeah, like, put on for so going to play against him every day in practice and just, like, asking him questions, watching him work, watch how they communicate. Like, in those 2 months that I was there was probably the most I learned about leadership and how to run a team. And being so young,
wow.
I always heard about, point guards, like, they gotta be communicating, they gotta talk. I'm a visual person, so be able to see it every day and see how, that works.
Yeah,
Just
sinks in.
watching them every day, seeing how, yeah, like I said before. So that's what I took away from that situation and then carried it to, my next team. Even though we didn't get the chance to qualify, um, the team was loaded, had a lot of great skilled players, UK guys, NBA guys. Um, I was just being realistic with myself and was like, I'm still young, so I'm not gonna be able to fight with, these guys for the team.
Right,
Um, so I mean, from there, I
right.
I ended up signing with a team in France, second division. And then all the skills and knowledge that I gained from there, that's where I ended up going to, be able to use young team, got a chance to really take responsibility of the team. Did well that year, and then that brought me back to my 4th year, which brought me to Germany again. In Germany,
Okay.
same type of situation, similar to the other German team, but a little bit better. Um, Still guys that within their 2nd or 3rd year, ambitious team, did really well that year. And,
Right.
that's where I really kinda also learned the, taking responsibility, how to run a team, how to get other guys involved, and also getting myself involved, and, you know, actually feeling that I can play at a higher level and have motivations to be a part of a Champions League or Euro Cup type of team. Um,
Right.
after that after that year, we was, like, 1 game away from making playoffs, but still had a really solid season, and then the following year, my 5th year brought me to, France, 1st division, which was a pretty huge step, and just being at a very high level of European basketball that I was not aware of, but,
Right.
it challenged me not only, physically, but challenged me mentally that whole season, um, and just had to understand the mental side of basketball and had to, end up talking to a mental therapist about a sports performance therapist, that really helped me understand
Okay.
my struggles and just helping other people understand that it was like, no, like every athlete or every player goes through these type of challenges and it's okay to admit that.
Sure.
Yeah, and and just admit that like it's okay to not be able to understand it or going through an injury or not scoring or being on a good team. Like that year, we were the last team in the league, so a lot of those losses was obviously a mental burden and feeling like it was all of my fault.
Right, of
But
course.
I walked away that season, with just learning the mental side of the game, how to overcome those different challenges that you go through. And
Mhm.
luckily, I was able to make it to Poland. Never been to Poland before, so that was my first time there. However, still a really good season, really good team. We probably our biggest accomplishment the whole year was in the first round of playoffs. We beat the number 1 team in, the first round after being down
Nice.
0-2, coming back 3 games in a row and winning that. So got, big solid season for the club. So I was excited
Right.
to first time actually playing FIBA Europe Cup as well. That was my main reason of
Okay.
going there, getting that international experience. So that was my first
Right.
introduction into international competition, how that kind of works. So excited about that. That was one of the main reasons why I went there. And then that was what led me to here in Nymburk. Of course, being going into my 7th year at the time, I heard a lot about the club, knew some, former friends or players that played here for the club. Heard nothing but great things, and I know they had ambitions to play in Champions League. So I was open to the opportunity, even though the league itself is not as strong domestically as a France or a Germany. The club itself does really well in, international competition. So that just shows me that there's a strong structure to the organization. They take care of their guys and they know what they're doing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I've also, knew I had a family at the time. So, everything that we were looking for as not only the player, but as a family, they were able to, provide and also just the opportunity to play international play. Competition. The year before, they finished 8th, I believe, or top 8 in the FIBA Europe Cup.
Okay.
So and had a lot of their, national team players coming back, so the core value of the club or the team was still gonna be there, so coming in and transitioning into, this team and the coaching staff, And to me, it fit my game. It fit the way that I, wanted to play or how I like to play, in the system. So the
Mm,
biggest thing was just being able to qualify and, making out of qualifications. That was our main goal, our first goal. And, we made it out of there. And then every game was just, to me, just a blessing because it was something that I thrived and wanted to be a part of and, be in these competitions. Like to me, it was kind of like no matter how much money, no matter how much somebody may try to throw the bag, it's kind of like where you wanted to be and that goal that you wanted to be, like you made it, you're here, you did it. And to, be a part of a team that not only competed, but like went deep into the competition it's been an amazing year just to be a part of it. So, I mean,
yeah,
for a professional career, it was definitely a huge milestone and just beyond happy and blessed and favored just how everything has gone so far. So whether we won or we lost, I just kept reminding myself, it was like, this is where you wanted to be and now you're here. So I mean you can't ask for any other opportunity and just
exactly.
go out and play your game. So I mean it took a lot of the pressure off because it's kind of like I'm not even supposed to be here. So that's kind of my journey over the last 7 years of playing.
And you just even touched upon it because this is something that I didn't really realize until because I have a under 16s team and we've got one girl, shout out to Kiki, like she also played for a team back in Portugal, and for her I kind of learnt through her how even yes, the whole world plays the sport of basketball, but their interpretations of it and their style of play, but also what the referees call is different because, she was telling me in Portugal, it's a bit more physical. So defensively, she could be a bit more physical and get away with things. Whereas in London, she found she had to kind of pull back, which was hard for her because her instinct is to go for that block or swipe her hand a certain way. Whereas in the UK, in London, it's like if your hand comes down aggressively, they'll assume you're making contact. So for her, it was making that adjustment. So for yourself, Stephen, like, how would you compare the style of play in the Basketball Champions League to what you were used to in college or even back home?
I would say I would definitely say being in just Europe in general, the competition in terms of what they allow is definitely more physical. The team I'm a part of is a very physical team. So in the Champions League, they allowed a lot of different things for us to get away with. Um,
Okay.
Whether that's, pressuring the ball, sometimes grabbing a guy here and there. If you know how to flop and, make something happen, you might get a call, but a lot of the times throughout the competition, they let a lot of things go,
Mm,
especially inside the paint, which for us worked out in our favor. But just
mm,
looking at the grand, overall picture of it is definitely more physical than I experienced in college, first part of overseas. And like you said, I was in London for that short time. So it was surprisingly a little bit different because there was a lot of things that they didn't really allow, which I was surprised to see, um, compared to other parts of, you know, Europe in general. But same thing, within this league. I mean, within this season as well. You have a
yeah,
Champions League game on Tuesday where you can be really physical, and then you have to come to your domestic league on Friday, Saturday, and kind of
right.
you don't know how the refs are gonna be that day. So sometimes
Mm,
we, got ourselves in trouble with, adjusting to the physicality or, what is allowed, what isn't allowed. So I mean, I would definitely say the physicality is definitely, was allowed in the Champions League more than even our domestic league.
okay. And just like, I mean, you even said it, I think this is one thing that, again, just, speaking with just high level pros like yourself, I'm really learning that yes, you're playing the sport that you love, but it's a serious sacrifice, because not a lot of athletes are able to take their family with them, so therefore those people who are in that situation, they're missing birthdays, they're missing weddings, they're missing some key events, or just in general, they're just missing home, because it's one thing to do the sport that you love, but when it's away from home, that's a whole nother level of grind, motivation, and just keeping the mental health sane. So for yourself, Stephen, like what were some of the biggest challenges adjusting to life and basketball overseas?
For me, the number one thing was learning how to be comfortable alone and
Hmm. That's a podcast.
accepting the
Oh my
fact.
gosh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, for real.
it can be on both sides. It's pros and cons to that, but it's you really start to question and have to be real with yourself and say, do I really love this game enough to be willing to sacrifice certain aspects of, early on, I would say my first 3 years were definitely challenging because I was alone. COVID happened for about a year and a half. So, it's one thing to be having COVID and then quarantine with family, but it's another thing to be in a country by yourself, catching COVID and being alone. Like those days are gonna be rough. And
Right.
you can't play basketball. So what's your reason for being out here is kind of taken away from you also. So mentally it was tough. It is tough. Like you said, during those, holidays and um parts of the season you're missing birthdays, different things like that. Luckily I've been blessed to, have a wife who's been able to come overseas with me, the last few years. So we had our daughter out here for the first time. And, luckily everything went smooth in that process. I just know for most overseas players, they don't get to have that opportunity. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, I would say my family, in terms of my mom and dad and siblings, they've been able to come visit me during Christmas time. So that definitely gave me something to always look forward to. For them to come visit. This year, my in-laws were able to come visit. So
Nice, nice.
yes, you're gonna have those lonely times, and I know not every overseas basketball player gets that opportunity to have family to come visit. So I definitely see that as a blessing. That definitely helps with my mental. Right now, my wife and daughter are back at home, just getting adjusted, and then I'll meet them back in, a few weeks from now. So I mean, even within that short time, being into my 7th year, if I still was alone, it would be really hard for me to actually continue on because you just start seeing things, you really, like I say, you get to the point of like, okay, is it really worth it being away from loved ones, missing,
Yeah.
moments and different things like that. But since, I have my own family, we've been able to, create a life outside of the US and actually enjoy Europe. Um, to me, it's made me feel that it's been worth it, and family gets a chance to come visit, and it hits a little bit different you're in when you're overseas and you get to take your family to Berlin to, experience something you've never seen before. So, I mean, it's usually moments like that where it's like, if it wasn't for what I do or the opportunity I've been given, my family wouldn't be able to experience Prague or, get to see the Eiffel Tower, which they always dreamed of. So, on one hand, it is hard, but I'm definitely blessed and grateful that I'm able to create the experiences for other people as well.
See, and it must be such a trip because I'm just looking at me and like, I've been fortunate enough to be, coaching basketball for 13 years now. And I just look at the the people who I now call my brothers, I met them through basketball and the people that I'm connecting with and just the experiences, where I've traveled is just all through basketball. And sometimes I'm like, you're telling me this little round ball has given me so much, you know? So for yourself, like Stephen, like what has it been just having those little moments where you're like, damn, like I'm literally in a whole nother country doing a sport I love and getting paid for it. My family get to visit. Like what or how do some of those moments feel for you?
To me, it's just kinda like I said previously, it's just kind of a moment, just like, if you really think about it, like, you can say, like, you made it. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, everybody's dream is, the NBA or anything, but it's like, what you love to do is providing for not only yourself, but your family and creating experiences for
Yeah.
other people that you love. So that for me, that mindset is that like there is no money that can equate to that. It's like it'll be another thing if I'm making all this money, but I can't actually go and enjoy these different things, or family comes and visits, and I'm like, I can't come see y'all because sometimes I do, but I can't come spend time with y'all because
Right.
I gotta go travel all the way over here or something over there, but be able to still be able to enjoy the game and, have family and create experiences is just really a contentment and just being grateful to God for just providing and giving me the skills, the opportunity, and just being able to do something that I love uh,
Yeah.
for a living. And
Right.
I know can't, it's not something I can do until I'm 50. Yeah, that'd be great. It's not even something that I want to do till I'm 40. So, I mean, within the short time span, it's just really just trying to, like you said, just make sure that you appreciate those moments and, you know, create memories as much as possible and just not letting it pass by while you're within this short time span.
Right. Right. And just speaking now just about the importance of just having game IQ. I think we hear about this a lot. Like, you have players who is extremely skilled and athletic, but you put them in a 5-on-5 situation where you got a zone defense or they're pressing or they're blitzing, they're hedging, they're icing. They're like, wait, I don't know how to make the right decision. So for yourself, Stephen, when it comes to game IQ and kind of just developing point guards, like as a point guard, how important is basketball IQ when playing at a high level, especially in a structured European system?
I mean, I think it's definitely important, mainly because nowadays the point guard at every level, or especially at a high level, has a lot of responsibility. And in a sense of, they're the ones creating the plays, putting guys in the right spots, knowing each guy's tendencies, um, and just understanding what the coaches also want for you to do on the court, and at the same time having to still play your game. So it's a lot of responsibility that goes into it. But like I said before, when I was growing up or when I first started being a pro, so I used to always ask, the veteran guys or, the guys like Justin Robinson. I was like, how do you know, like, in what situation to look for? And he was like, it just comes from experience. Like, the more you see it, the more that to see situations or put yourself in situations, it's just going to become something that's natural. So, I mean, now into my 7th year, it's kind of like, okay, certain coverages, I know what to look for, who might be open. So, I mean, I think that just comes with time and is being consistent and seeing it more often. I think with a lot of another OG of mine when I was in France, before the season or before I went back home, his biggest advice was like, just watch a lot of EuroLeague. Just watch a lot of those guys and see, what are their reads and, what are they looking for in certain situations. So, I mean, that's what I did and just started to pick up and focus on guys that especially have similar type of games that I am, or small guards, um, that are put in a lot of those situations. So, I mean, I think having the IQ of the game is just as important as having skill. So, I mean, like you saw in this past Olympics, the US struggles a lot because you have to go from a game in the States that's pretty based on athleticism and shooting the ball, where coming to an overseas is more tactical. Every possession matters, and different schemes that are, kind of level the playing field. So that's where tell a lot of players it's not always about skill, but having the IQ and reads that
Yes.
sometimes can just make your job a lot easier, to be honest.
Right. And just even you touched upon it, like for the athlete or the up and coming point guard for their team, like what are some key reads or decisions you think young point guards should focus on during games?
For me, I would say being aggressive and not just in a scoring, sense. Because they used to always tell me, I want you to be aggressive, you need to be aggressive. So to me, in my head, I was like, okay, I got to score. But when somebody explained to me, like, no, being aggressive also means coming off of a, pick and roll and getting into the paint. We all know if
Mm.
you get in the paint, draw two, draw three, get your shooter open, you get, the big open. So you just being aggressive enough to make plays, not only for yourself. At that point, once you draw three, it's just making the right decision. And then just giving or doing with the offense, I mean, what the defense gives you that game, Uh,
Yeah.
also just understanding pick and roll reads and be able to make that pass, out of a hedge, pocket passes. Um, a lot of young points I struggle with making those passes early on and being able to make those passes. Skip passes. So I mean, just a lot of, one passes that can open up not only you, that's an extra 2, 3 assists. If you have a lob threat, understanding, how to throw a lob or different things like that. But all of those
Right.
all of those, like I said before, will probably come down to just being aggressive and understanding when to go, when to draw, and, get guys involved. So that's what I would just kind of give in terms of advice that was also given to me growing up as a young point guard. Because we all know that being young, you have that motor, obviously, but it's just channeling the
Yeah.
aggressiveness to not only to utilize it for yourself, but also where it can benefit everybody else.
Right. Right. See, that's something that you even highlighted earlier on in the podcast where when you transition to the college level, you really, and even when you was playing over here in London, you really got a chance to experience what real leadership looks like, and even the communication level as well. Like, it's not just, let's say the average point guard or the average team might say, okay, screen left, screen right, but the elite teams are saying, screen left, go under, screen right, I'm hedging, I'm icing lefty, so therefore I'm going to screen a certain way. So it's just, you have your average point guards who do certain things, but I mean, when I look at a guard like yourself, who's just so dynamic and decision making is on the fly, like you are an example of what future point guards should be learning from, to be honest. And like, what would you say are like two or even three pieces of advice you would give to young point guards who are looking just to elevate their game?
I would first start out with what I struggled with, which was being vocal. Um,
Okay.
they used to always tell me it's like, being vocal, be vocal, you're the voice in the court. And a lot of the times you also are the ones that has the ball in your hand a lot. So I would definitely say number one is just being vocal, because if you can get guys in the right spot, Steve the floor, or like you said, call out a ball screen, or if the big didn't call out a ball screen, or just motivating guys. Most of the time, one of the coaches that I play for, he was like, "You're my engine." So if my engine is not, running well, the rest of the
Got
car or the rest of the ship or anything can't run. So
right.
that's just one of the ones that I would just say is this definitely be vocal. Um, like I mentioned before, just being aggressive and just being able to, create your own shot would definitely be last. And just hitting those and not being afraid of taking responsibility. Um, it's gonna come with it's gonna come with failure. I struggled with that at first. Just understanding is like, well, I don't want to be the one to miss the shot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I said, when I was going through that, learning the mental side of the game is just like, well, you're also the one that is entrusted with the ball the most. So it's also understanding the flow of the game. Like, okay, if there's a guy that's kind of getting hot or he's gotten hot in that last 3 minutes, obviously he's the guy. But if it's going back and forth during the game and you feel that like you've had a good control of the game and the situation, take upon that responsibility. And it's not gonna be
Yeah,
your only time in your whole career where it's gonna matter. And sometimes it's just
right,
coming down to trusting the work that you put in every day. And like I said, in the first one goes into just being a leader. If, if a team can trust you down the stretch, then that opens up a lot of opportunities. And it's just what most teams look for, especially when you're starting out pretty young and want to move to a higher team. It's like that's something that they want to um, see you able to do in those moments, especially as a young guard or young point guard.
right, right. And it really just, I mean, you even just mentioned it there, like with regards to just what you're working on with your daily habits and your daily routine, which kind of leads me to my next topic. Like when it comes to your daily routine and your skill maintenance, like what does a typical in-season training week look like for you, and how do you stay sharp during the grind of a long season?
Yeah, I mean, it's just now that I'm a little bit older into, I guess you say, vet year, seventh year, it's just finding, just kind of just
Mhm.
keeping sharp in terms of like spending maybe 10, 15 minutes after practice or 10 to 15 minutes before practice, getting shots up that you're going to take during a game, not just, you know, shooting random shots, but just locking in on a few
Yeah.
consistent shots. It doesn't have to be 30 to 40 shots, but okay. Like today after practice, I just wanted to do a lot of catch and shoot, and off the dribble, but making three in a row. So I really got to lock in on three shots that I got to make. And just doing that consistently.
Right.
So when the game comes, that like if you miss the first one, he's like, okay, I know if I miss the first one or second one, I know I can hit this shot 3 times in a row. So it just depends who you are as a player. I know for me, it's a lot of the mental side. If I see, my shot not falling during the game, it might take a lot of the aggressiveness. So I just do certain things that help my mental be stronger when it comes to, my shot.
Right.
So that's what I kind of focus on in the day to day. It's just spending maybe 10, 15 minutes out of practice and just working on shots that I know that I'm going to take and, just finding my spots and honing on them, especially during in season. There's no reason to be spending an hour after practice when you just killed your body for about an hour and a half. So those are just different things. And also just as much as yeah, so as much as preparing and, doing things on the court, a lot of it has been off the court. Uh especially a season like this,
There we
playing international, playing domestic league. We playing 2 to 3 games a week. A lot of the time has just been taking care of my body, stretching a lot, rolling out. If you have one, cold tub, just kind of trying to utilize every aspect that the organization has. They have, physios that are able to stretch you out or have, massages or different things that are hindering you on your body. So, I mean, taking the time to eat right during the season. I mean, it's at this level, I'm starting to realize like a lot of it is just regimen every single day, just doing the same thing and just trying to stay consistent with it, which is I've heard a lot of the older guys saying it. So I mean, if it's worked for them and they're playing in their 10 plus years, I might as well try to follow suit. And, and also sleep. To me, sleep is probably my biggest recovery. If I sleep good or take a good nap during the day, my body's usually ready to go for the game or something like that. But those are just kind of everything that kind of all goes into a daily or weekly routine. So I mean, for me,
Right.
especially at this point of the season, it's really just making sure the body's in its best shape possible, dealing with knee tendonitis and allergies and different things like that. So
Yeah.
those are kind of my, focus points at this point in the season, and just trying to stay sharp with, shooting as well.
And even just like, because what really stood out with, how you just looking at your journey from college to, I mean, this being your seventh year, more so the prior years when you were speaking about just, I mean, how much can happen in a year and there's certain pressures or expectations you might even set on yourself outside of what the club has already put on you. So like when it comes to the professional grind, Stephen, like how do you deal with pressure and expectations both internally and from the outside?
That's a great question because my time, like I mentioned before, for my time in France, that's exactly what I struggled with is placing that pressure on myself, having to figure out,
Right,
okay, this is what the club's expectations are, and me trying to reach that standard. And the advice that was always given to me was one, give yourself some grace. You're going to make mistakes. The game of basketball is, you know, made up of mistakes.
love that.
You- And then on top of that is just understanding that it's a team game. Like they need you
Right,
and you need them in order to perform and be at your best. So if the team or if you experience 2, 3, 4 losses within a row, is not going to be, you shouldn't have to feel that sense or burden. Like the game is made up of 40 minutes. And if you're only playing 20, the other the other half of the game, someone is holding up that responsibility as well. You can only control what you do within that 20 minutes for itself.
right.
So I try to take myself in terms of my whole self out of the bigger picture and realize it's like, okay, this is a team game and I just need to do my best to contribute as best as possible. And some days my best is gonna be the best, some days
Mhm.
it's gonna be a moderate, and then some days it's gonna be, really, really bad. But it's just continuing to try to show up, not just for yourself, but
Right.
for the team.
Sure.
So that's kinda how it just dealt with, pressures, and then also just trying to, journal. I know a lot of overseas guys like to journal, it's just getting things out of your head, getting them down on paper. Um, and then just finding ways to be grateful, praying a lot. That kinda, just releases the pressure of just like things could have been worse. And just trying to just change your perspective on different things, just trying to say is like,
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but it's like at the end of the day, it's just basketball. And it's like
Yeah, yeah, of course.
you still have loved ones, they're gonna
Right.
be there after the game.
That's true.
It's just basketball. So once I kind of get to that mindset, it's kind of like, okay, let's just go play.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And right, what are some, I mean, just before we wrap up with the beyond the game segment, like what are some things young hoopers don't realize about the path to becoming and staying a pro?
I would say, even for myself, is that I hate it when they would say it to me, but it is definitely a process. Like trusting the everyday grind. And it's not always about like, okay, if their goal is to be at this level and this team, if you were to go from, like I said, from like if I were to go from the second division Turkey team and then move to a EuroLeague team within a span of 3, 4 months, would I honestly be prepared for that? Would I honestly be prepared to take on, that responsibility right away? Like, no, like you need time to grow. You need time to understand
Right.
your game, different types of game, be around certain different people. So, I mean, it's just understand that it's like, yeah, it's gonna take time. Like, you didn't learn how to become a great shooter overnight. You didn't learn how to dribble the ball overnight. So it's the same thing.
True.
And trying not to go off of, your timetable, because that's only gonna cause things to or cause you to, feel that, you didn't make it or you didn't, you know, you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve right away. So I mean, you just continue to trust it, trust the work,
Right.
don't deviate from the process. And if you see, progress little by little every day continues to add up. And then lastly, if those opportunities do
Yeah.
come about,
True.
it's just being prepared for them.
Right. Right. And just as we transition, I mean that's a great segue into just our beyond the game segment, which I like to have with my special guest. Like the first one, I'm super intrigued now, just with your journey so far and your book that's still being written. Like the first question I've got for you, Stephen, is what would you say this could go the basketball route or life? Like what is a skill that is taught by many but only mastered by a few?
Mm. Can you repeat it again? I think you went out. It says reconnecting.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Just let me know when I'm back.
Wait for it to reconnect. There you go. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Okay. I can see you. Can you see me and hear me? Or is it still a bit or is it lagging a bit?
No, I can hear you and see you. I just want to make sure. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. No, I can hear you. All good. All good. Alright. Let me just re-record that bit.
Okay.
Cool.
So what
So
what was the question again?
just I got you. So kind of making that transition now to our beyond the game segment. What would you say, um, Stephen? This could go in basketball or life. What would you say is a skill that is taught by many but only mastered by a few?
To me, what I'm starting to realize is my first answer. I saw one of your other podcasts and somebody said that answer, so I'm not gonna say that one. But for me, it's just being able to communicate. Um, I think that's I feel like that's a pretty common one. That's in life, that's in basketball, that's us men in general, and being able to communicate,
Yeah, sure.
communicating, how we feel, what we want,
Yeah.
um, how we're feeling, how we're dealing with different things. Um, and also just on a bigger scale is just like you have people that are great communicators. And I would say that is something that I aspire try to be is work on communicating. And some people have mastered it, some are still in the process, but I would say communication is definitely one that is, or tries to be taught, but only a very few are able to actually put it into practice and being able to use it effectively.
Mm, that's true. That is so true. And next one, Best piece of advice you ever received?
There's a lot. I would say there's 2. Um,
Oh, okay.
on a
Give me
practical
one.
sense, yeah, I would say on a practical sense is I remember my dad told me this, but I'm pretty sure I don't know if it's a very well-known phrase. It's just don't put all your eggs in one basket. I don't know if you heard
Mhm.
that phrase before.
Okay. Yeah, I have. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of just like try to be, don't rely on just one thing or just one avenue of, way of life. Like for me, growing up, especially high school, all I cared about was just basketball, basketball, basketball. And I think this is good, especially for young people. That was just like basketball is the way. Basketball is I gotta make it. I gotta make it. And it's like as a human being, you're made up of so many different, you know, aspects of who you are. And
True.
yes, basketball is great. It can be a tool, but don't let that be all that you're just about or as just about
Mm,
as a person. So
right.
in terms of basketball, that's why I always heard is don't put your eggs in all in one basket. But on a day-to-day life and spiritual aspect that I've always, loved and lived by is just seeking God first in all of his ways and all of my ways, and everything will be added unto me. It's a scripture verse in the Bible that I love, mainly because I've just seen the favor of God in my life, and every single time that I've seen it is when I've included him into my daily actions or just my daily decisions. So having that as, my foundation, whether it works out or whether it doesn't work out, I know like I'm good. I'm solid on that part. So for me, those are
Right.
my favorite 2, I would say.
And just the final two before we wrap up. This one is you have to fill in the blanks. So the sentence is, if it wasn't for basketball, I wouldn't have learnt filling the blank about myself.
If it weren't for basketball, I wouldn't realize the fear of failure about myself that I had.
Mm, okay. Wow. Why do you mean that?
For me as a person, I don't like to let people down. And
Uh,
like I said, during that mental, yeah, so, and especially in the game of basketball,
yeah.
dealing with failure, you can either play to win or play not to lose, playing not to let someone else down, especially like when I first got fired, playing overseas my first time. It wasn't that I was upset that, the team didn't want me. I was upset and ashamed that I let my family and friends down that were back at home rooting for me.
Yeah.
So that was probably the first thing that, I had to deal with early on in basketball that it has definitely taught me.
Right. And just the final one. What would the title of your autobiography be?
Mm. If it was just for basketball autobiography, it would probably just be Stephen Brown, Where the Game Has Taken Me and Taught Me.
Mm, okay. And if we're talking about life,
In life,
one man, I don't know that even
who is going to be? Yeah, it definitely is
yeah,
about
okay.
mine would just have to be Stephen Brown, living a life, living a life with favor. That's what it is be probably.
Mm, I like that. I like that. And honestly, this has been a this has been a serious gem for myself, listeners, future point guards, just players in general, But for those who just want to continue following you on your journey, don't worry, guys. The the link to all his socials will be in this description. But for those who are tuned in right now, they just want to follow you and just want to keep up with you and see what you got going on as well. When it comes to the socials, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, SL Brown 2. Same thing with TikTok. And those are the two social that I also have. Facebook as well, SL Brown 2. So that's where you can find me. And yeah, it's pretty simple. Thank you once again for having me. Love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You being a coach as well, man. That's been a blessing. I know being a coach is also tough, but at the same time, you providing purpose and giving back to the community. So I love to see that aspect of it as well.
Appreciate that, man, Steve. I mean, coming from you, that really means a lot. I think what was dope just about this podcast, just before we wrap up, is like your journey really shows resilience, how important resilience is, faith being so huge, and just always being a sponge. Because one thing I liked was, you have some pros who've already made it at that pro level. Once they get that title, they're like, all right, cool, I can kick back now. I used to do like 1,000 reps a day. I'm cool with like 250 or like, like even just me being on the bench and I'm seeing other people play, like you could have been like not paying attention to what was going on in London and learning from Robinson. But the fact that you were still a sponge and a student of the game shows why you're so successful and the high athlete and the man that you are today. So I mean, athletes like yourself really, really set a great example. So shout out to you, man, for real.
Oh, definitely, man. I appreciate that a lot, man.
For real. So
You just gave me my title of the book, man. Just Stephen Brown, the overall sponge. It gave me to the title of their own book, man. If I ever come out with one, man, I'm about to say he's quoted by Demetrius.
appreciate you,
That's
man.
love,
Honestly, this
man.
has been for real, man. This has been an absolute gem for me, listeners. Thank you so much for your time. Stephen Brown, man, thank you so much for your time, guys. Stay tuned with him, follow him during the season, the upcoming seasons as well. We appreciate your listening ears. We'll catch you on the next one. This is myself, Coach D, and the dynamic guard that is Stephen Brown signing out.
Peace. Thanks, bro.